Sika Show and Tell. In this episode, Neil compares cousins and seeks answers from the Prof.
It's a mule. It's something of mixed features halfway between red deer and Sika deer.
Harness up the reindeer. Our own Father Christmas Ian Hodge is back with his stocking filler recommendations. Podcast this week is a deer management masterclass with Professor Rory Putman. And David is on the new stump. Welcome to Fieldsports Britain. In the first episode of Year in the Life of Sika, Niall Rowantree highlighted some of the differences between our native red deer and the alien, non-native Japanese Sika. In simple terms, reds are front and centre, Sika are secretive and clever.
Are you frustrated yet?
In this episode, we delve deeper into the natural history of the Sika, the physiological differences and similarities between it and its red cousin.
They stand out really clearly, the glands on the back of the legs on a Sika, more so than on a red.
And what is powering its progress across the Scottish landscape?
Well, Valley. Within circle. So it's swinging here on the hook, so she thinks it's still moving, so she's baying it. So you do that, you could go home, come out in the morning, she'd still be doing it.
With a red stag in the chiller, Neil now needs a Sika stag to hang alongside it to perform some post-mortem analysis. The more he understands Sika deer, the better he will be at controlling them. Neil's thirst for knowledge takes him south to speak to his friend, deer biologist and former chairman of the British Deer Society, Professor Rory Putman.
The one that comes up in the deer world as the sort of alien non-native, and it's on this ICUN most invasive species list, is the Japanese Sika. What's your opinion on all this?
It's on IUCN's list. It's not on the European list. It's not on the British list of invasive non-natives, where the definition is quite clearly an introduced animal whose range is expanding rapidly and which is having a very clear negative impact on the environment. So according to that definition, none of the UK species, as far as I'm aware, are invasive non-natives except for muntjac in England and Wales.
Okay.
That said, I suppose there are two things I would say. First of all, you're never going to get rid of them. And secondly, there's no good evidence that non-natives have a heavier impact per se than do natives.
Back to that Sika stalk. Following the illuminating experience of flying an Autel thermal drone across this plantation, Neil returns early in the morning, hoping to intercept Sika heading for the trees. The hike micro habrocks tell a story, but not the one we want.
There's four on the edge of the trees in front of us. It's 20 minutes after daylight. When we arrived before daylight, we could see about a dozen Sika deer making their way off this area. This has just been harvested. Next to it's a restock. In the time it took us to walk up onto the top of the hill, they had gone a kilometre onto the forest edge, and they just watched the group disperse as it went into the trees. And this is very much the behavioural difference between them and red deer that we were looking at the other day. They don't like being out in the open in daylight. So what I reckon we'll do is, rather than push into this area now and disturb them, we'll take a different route, and we'll come back and we'll set up and wait for these guys reappearing in the evening. So off we go. Are you frustrated yet?
The stags we suspect we filmed from the drone are already heading in, but Neil can't afford to be outsmarted. This is his 7th attempt with David to film a successful Sika stalk.
What's worth remembering, these were commercial forests of the 1980s. And when these forests were planted, nobody gave the first consideration to managing deer in it. And then here, the Sika have the upper hand.
If you want numbers, you've got your work cut out. After a 20-minute stalk up and above where the stags were evaporating, antlers poke above the cover.
As quickly as that happens. Their size makes them quite hard to see. Could you see him there?
Neil manages to get on the sticks just in time to take his chance with his Blaser R8 Silence.
The last time we were looking at Sika, they were in winter coats, and then we saw hinds in summer coat. And you can see now this is a Sika stag in his summer coat. And very often when they turn up in an area, people that haven't seen them before think they're seeing fallow. And it's because of this difference in summer and winter pelage. So in the winter they're almost that charcoal grey-black, and in the summer they're spotty like a fallow.
Again, that happened so fast. It was just see the antlers sort of emerging from the bracken, did you?
Yeah, I saw them walking towards us. They were coming in down the path. I pointed down to you, see there's fresh marks on the path, and I looked up and I saw the tips of the antlers coming through the trees. And then by the time I swung the rifle up, he'd come past that tree and was walking down here, and I think that's when you saw him. And as you spoke to me just now, a big stag has just run down past behind you. So you've gone from nothing to 5 to nothing in a split second. Very, very different to the red deer.
Gosh, you've got to be quick.
But at least you've seen one this trip. It's worth pointing out to any of our European viewers that to them culturally, the idea of shooting a deer in velvet is abhorrent to them. The point has to be made here that yes, we do some commercial hunting, but the objective primarily here is reducing Sika deer numbers. This is an alien non-native in the Scottish environment, and we don't need them or want them here. So looking at this stag, the molars are fully erupted. You've got a 7-point head. It's not a huge head, but that animal is 3 years old, and I don't think he's 4, I'm pretty sure he's 3. He's still in velvet. He's very classic of this orangey velvet that the Sika has, and unlike the red deer that we saw yesterday, this guy is still a little bit soft at the top, which you would expect because the Sika in this part of the world are cleaning that little bit later. But it's his age also influences this. So as we came up through the forest, we could see signs of scrapes, we could see signs of antlers being frayed, and one of the big guys we saw disappearing at first light was clean. So he's younger. He was in a group of young males there. There was one yearling and 2 other males, one that broke off to the right, the other one that went straight back the way. And then as you pan through with the camera, a bigger stag appeared behind us and disappeared off down the slope, and he was clean, that fella. If you look at the backside, you can't confuse him for a fallow because there's quite distinct differences, and then you see these in the Sika, the patches on the legs here, they stand out really clearly, the glands on the back of the legs in a Sika, more so than on a red. And occasionally on some red hybrids you'll see this. So he's in his summer coat, he's got a dapple on him, but very different to the way you see a summer coat in a fallow. But as with all of them, when we open up we'll see it, he's as fat as butter. This guy, I will eat him, because it's this time of year before we get really busy. My lady wife insists on some decent venison in the freezer. So the stag we shot the other day in this Sika, I'll butcher both of them and eat them myself.
When you talk about the covered in fat, that harks back to Rory, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah. I mean, they're performing so well in this environment. It's not their natural environment, but it's an environment they've adapted incredibly well to. And some would say that because of their behaviour, and you've seen it in the difficulties, in this sort of environment, they're outperforming the red deer.
Because they are smaller, they don't need as much food to keep them in good condition. With smaller muzzles, they can crop grazing swards closer, they can pluck nutritious buds and shoots from trees better, and so they are better able to maintain a good quality and quantity of food intake than larger animals in the same environment. And it's a classic across the UK, wherever we have 2 or 3 or 4 species co-occurring, it's always the smaller species that seem to do better and be able to displace, in some cases, the larger species. So yes, I'm not particularly surprised that you're finding that smaller Sika deer are doing, or Sika-like deer, of course, because they're hybrids, are doing better than larger bodied red deer, because they don't need so much food to maintain good body condition, and they're better equipped to get it from restricted resources.
If a more diverse habitat in Scotland is the goal, then these deer and this species has to be taken seriously into account, because what we're doing at the moment is we're skewing things to favour them without taking enough cognizance of the impacts and their ability to adapt and do well. And one of the classic things in this environment is, even at high density, they're incredibly fecund. We saw that the other night. You know, we had a Sika hind in front of us with twins. We're seeing that repeatedly in this area now. So this population is responding to pressure by bouncing back.
Do reds have twins?
I've seen it in red deer. There was one red hind regularly on Ardnamurchan Marathon at Bray House. I think we might have got her on camera, in fact, you and I, and she had twins. But in 25 years, I maybe saw it there 3 times, 4 times, whereas in the last 2 years, I've seen it here more than a dozen times.
Sika have a reputation for running great distances, even with large calibre rounds. Niall is all about the numbers, so what can he do to ensure they drop?
It dropped well, Neil, didn't it?
Totally, on the spot. Because we want to get the numbers, and we want to be sure, classically I do exactly what I did there, which is to thump them through both shoulders. And might sound a bit coarse, but they don't go far on their chin. And you can see that they took him through the shoulders and he just went nose down straight into the ground, and that was it.
And even with the copper, you're not having any issues at all?
I think, my honest opinion, the Hornady bullets, I think they're responding to demand that everybody wants them to move to copper. They're very good at researching what they do for rounds. And we've been lucky here. We've had guys like Neil Davis and Jens here with us, looking at what we're trying to deal with. And these rounds now, there is obviously, I think there's influences of range on how some copper bullets perform, but certainly the outfitter round, between 60 and 200, it's, well, you saw it yourself. They've tuned this design right up, and the bullet's really effective.
How long have you been using it?
I've been using it. There's a Sika there running across the flats, look. No, we've been using copper bullets now for consistently for 3 seasons. I must be honest that part of me pines for the good old solid lead bullet, and I think there are some scenarios where I would prefer to use lead, but when it's not an option, you've got to go with copper.
Niall extracts the Sika using his quad. David tries out the Autel drone in the daylight using the hybrid setting. Very fitting. Before we leave, he makes sure his tool of the trade is taken care of.
I keep a towel in the vehicle just exactly for this, because if you put rifles and stuff in the back of vehicles and they've been out, they can sweat a bit, and it also means cases and that and covers get damp, and for the 2 seconds it takes to dry it off. I mean, it's not a big clean down, it's just taking the worst of the water off it.
Back at the chiller, the fun begins. Niall removes the deer sinew and produces the perfect dog chew.
So what you have to do once you've done that, just open it up there like that. Make sure you've cut it here at the bottom. Keep your fingers safe out of the way of the blade so you can get a hold. Go like that. Dog chew. Charka. I'll get it.
Of course, many pet shops sell deer antler as a dog chew. Roy has always maintained it's too hard for dogs' teeth. What does Neil think?
For my mind, it's a bit on the hard side, and some of the channeling in the antler, there is a tendency to break some of the molars. That's a better bet to my mind. And also, I'm a miserable beggar, and I can sell deer antler for £15 a kilo. So why would I give it to my dogs as a chew when I can give that to them, and that doesn't cost me anything? I'm throwing that away anyway.
With the dogs happy, it's time to look at the difference in body shape of these two specimens.
These guys are cousins. So this is Cervus nippon, the Sika deer. This is Cervus elephas, the red deer. Now, they're close cousins. If these two, and these can't obviously because they're stags, but if these two species mate, then the offspring are fertile. A lot of the debate surrounding hybrids is people think that what they're going to do is see something that looks part like this and part like that. And there are some occasions of first generation hybrid crosses that you will see clear characteristic differences that look out of place. But what you will find is by the time you get further on down that line, this guy is entirely capable of being in possession of his genes, of his DNA, of being related to a red deer, but having reverted to type as a Sika.
If there are plenty of Sika around, Sika will breed with Sika. If there are plenty of red around, red will breed with red. What tends to happen in the hybridization, and it tends to be these young Sika stags dispersing ahead of the main population that I was talking about earlier, they come into the edge of red deer range, and come the breeding season, because they've dispersed perhaps 20 kilometres ahead of the rest of the Sika population, there aren't any chances to breed with their own type. So they lurk around the outskirts of a red deer harem and grab the mating opportunities that they can. That first cross looks exactly like you've just described. It's a mule. It's something of mixed features halfway between red deer and Sika deer. But actually, thereafter, they tend, again, because the rest of the Sika population may have caught up, or because if it's a hybrid which looks slightly more like a red deer, there are lots of red deer around it, they tend to back cross to one or other of the parental types. So thereafter, this hybrid will either have bred with other Sika animals or animals which look like Sika, and the one that looks like nearly a red deer will tend to breed with red. And very, very quickly, it's called introgression. They seem to revert to the physical appearance of one parental type or the other, but they've got the taint, if I may use that word. It's not really a taint, but they've got that hint of genes from the other species within them.
Physical structure difference. If you look at the proportions of a red deer stag, you could say particularly the haunch and the tail end is more in balance for size with the shoulder. So he's altogether more like a square built body. Whereas you look at this guy, he's I like to use the expression for Sika, they're weight forward. So if you look at him, he's got the build already towards the heavy shoulders and chest, and this small driving backside. And you can see physically the difference here. He's almost dart-like, whereas this guy's almost that rectangular shape. It's like a triangular shape, rectangular shape. And in some of the big Sika stags we're getting, they're almost like bullocks. They've got these huge muscular front ends and these small backsides driving it along. Whereas with the red stag, he's much more of a rectangular feature.
We can't talk bodies and not talk heads,
Distinctly different.
because that is one of the reasons hunters travel halfway across the world to come to Scotland.
To be absolutely honest with you, it's interesting, and from a commercial hunting market point of view, you'll find that people will be a lot more, I would say, picky about what they're looking for in a stag. So you'll say people will want, I'd like to shoot a stag with crowns, or I'd like to shoot an old stag going back with long brow points. and with big forks. Typically what we find, and I think unless you're in a park or in some of the situations in the deep south, in sort of the New Forest or Dorset where you can be selective about it, most people with the Sika aren't really that fussed about what the head looks like. They like to shoot a nice 6 or they like to shoot a nice 8, but first and foremost they'd like to shoot a Sika. And I think that already identifies for people in the process that 9 times out of 10 it's an awful lot harder to come by one of them than it is to come by one of them. So here they're choosy, here they're just keen to encounter.
In the next episode of Year in the Life of Sika, the gloves are off and Neil has a night shooting licence to deliver on his management objectives. To hear the full Deer Masterclass chat with Rory and Neil, click on the podcast link in the description below. For more information about Neil's Blaser R8 Silence, go to blaser.de. To learn more about the Hornady Outfitter Copper Alloy Round, go to hornady.com. And to check out the latest Hike Micro thermal and night vision optics, head to hikemicrotech.com. Thank you, Neil. And before you all head off to make dog chews, the link to that podcast we mentioned in the piece is in the description below, where Neil and Rory set to talking about modern deer management in the UK. Now, what's in this week's Field Sports Extra? Our commercials director, an alligator, and a man with my line.
We haven't got to persuade many people in Devon and Cornwall to join up or to think about insurance, because we have had tremendous problems.
More from that gun shop owner later in this show. And this week's Field Sports Extra competition is for a signed copy of Rory Putman's book, British Deer and Their Management, and a set of ISO Tunes Caliber Bluetooth hearing protection priced at £179. Become a Field Sports member, now with insurance, and watch our exclusive members-only show Field Sports Extra to find out how to enter our free competition to win it. Now, our own noise reduction device. It's David on the Fieldsports Channel News Stump.
This is Fieldsports Channel News. Last time it was people power, this time it's brake horsepower as farmers in their tractors headed to Westminster. It was quite the spectacle as hundreds of tractors travelled from all across the UK to descend on London, reminding the government of the anger over new agricultural inheritance tax laws, which many feel will see the destruction of rural communities. Welsh hill farmer Gareth Wyn-Jones and event organiser Matt Cullen, a farmer from Kent, addressed the crowd across the road from Downing Street. Matt feels that Keir Starmer is uniting the countryside.
What he's done has actually forged alliance with everyone that's in the countryside, and he's forged an alliance that all the farmers for the first time have actually come together to support one on each other, whether that's livestock, arable, you're in the milk industry, you're a poultry farmer. It's brought everyone together, and that's what we've seen, a massive shift and change since this budget was released, that everyone is starting to come back and support the farmers.
For more on Matt's story, watch our film on Farming Britain, link below. A conservation industry organisation may let deer stalking on a Scottish estate they plan to rewild. The Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust leased the Dalnacarnock estate in Perthshire in 2023 from a family trust. Durrell has now drawn fire from its supporters for refusing to rule out banning all hunting and shooting on the estate. It told the BBC that deer stalking is part of the Scottish culture, so rather than saying no more stalking, it says we're taking a very pragmatic view. Campaigners are concerned about a boom in grey squirrel numbers in the last remaining stronghold for reds. An annual distribution survey of about 250 sites in woodlands and gardens across northern England showed that occupancy figures for red and grey squirrels are increasing, but they're rising more steeply for greys. The Red Squirrels Northern England group says that the red squirrels were found in 52% of sites this year, up from 50% in 2023. Grey squirrels were found in 69% of sites, up from 62% in 2023. A cybersecurity expert has avoided jail after hacking Hunt officials' emails and social media. The Hunting Leaks trial heard how thousands of members' details were leaked online in a bid to highlight illegal hunting. The Auntie, who works as a cybersecurity expert and had previously worked with police and National Crime Agency, hacked emails, social media and the cloud storage accounts of Hunt officials nationwide, leading to the online leak of thousands of their members' details, a court heard. The animal rights activist admitted specimen charges relating to 6 individuals. A magistrate sentenced the ante to 4 months imprisonment on each charge, to run concurrently and suspended for a year, plus 120 hours of unpaid community work, a fine of £154 and costs of £200, and ordered the laptop, which contained the personal data, to be destroyed. Are marauding boar about to invade Inverness? Probably not. However, a report in the national newspaper suggests that thousands of feral pigs roaming the Great Glen from Fort William to Inverness are now approaching the city. Government body Nature Scott says the number is in the low thousands, but locals believe it is closer to 5,000, says the report, and the animals are using newly planted tree cover for breeding. A Christmas art exhibition is celebrating the British countryside and country sports. Rural Art in Focus opens at London Scottish House in southwest London on the 18th of December 2024. Put on by PR company Touchpoint Strategy, the exhibition brings together a number of artists currently working on countryside subjects. The exhibition is a tribute to communities and landscapes that define British heritage, with many of the artists' subjects threatened by hostile legislation. Link to the ticket website below. The Football Association has fined a football club chairman after a picture of him holding a gun was published in a matchday programme. Peter McCormack, who owns Real Bedford, says no laws were broken and accuses the FA of not upholding free speech. Bedfordshire FA says that following a hearing, it issued a £30 fine for improper conduct in relation to the picture. Mr. McCormack posted on X saying, "The picture shows me on holiday in America holding a legally owned gun. The complaint boils down to subjective taste." One president of Botswana has changed his mind on hunting, and another is set to follow. According to newspaper reports, the new president, Duma Gideon Boko, was against hunting tourism, but now recognises its importance to his country's economy. Boko is lobbying former President Ian Khama to back Botswana's efforts against proposed European bans on wildlife trophy imports. Anti-hunting MPs in Westminster often cite Khama's anti-hunting beliefs as a reason that the UK should enact a trophy import ban. Last week, 6 southern African countries, including Botswana, Namibia, South Africa, Tanzania, Zambia and Zimbabwe, launched renewed efforts to challenge the hunting trophies importation prohibition bill in the UK, which may receive a second reading in January. Thanks to Steve Jones for the story. And finally, in a new African campaign against celebrity antis. This photograph is doing the rounds on the internet. It's a protest against celebrities who post pictures of themselves in activist t-shirts without thinking of the consequences. In the words of David Brent, are all pigs fed, watered and ready to fly? You are now up to date with Fieldsports Channel News. Stalking the stories, fishing for facts.
Thank you, David, who requires viewers to like this video and subscribe to Fieldsports Channel. Thank you. Now, fieldsportscompetitions.co.uk, our raffles website. If you are watching this on the Wednesday it comes out, there are hours left to enter with many prizes undersold. If it's not Wednesday, our latest round of prizes closed at 8 PM on Thursday the 12th of December 2024. Bad luck. Still worth a visit, as there will be more. Now, as well you know, Christmas isn't Christmas until Hans Gruber falls off the Nakatomi Plaza and Ian Hodge from Ian Hodge Fieldsports in Cornwall puts on a red and white hat.
Well, I've got some really special stuff this year. So we got a pack of Jack Pike targets. Could be for somebody who's got too much time on their hands. £9.95, 4 targets, different sizes, different distances, so it's for the kid or could be for a grown-up kid. Knocking targets over is always fun, whether you're 57 or 7. What else have we got here? Right, well, gun maintenance, the Leisure spray from Browning. We sell absolutely tons and tons of this stuff. Good value for money, £13.95 for, whacking great can. Don't put it under your arm, but you can if you want. I don't know. Whatever takes your fancy. The Leisure spray gun oil. Good all-rounder for wood, general, and the metal on guns, good stuff. Right, something a little bit bigger. Zeiss Trail Cam. Again, very popular stuff, sold lots and lots of these. The image quality is better than any television. It goes direct to your phone, you can see what's happening, it will ping to say there's deer movement or whatever, or security. You would think Zeiss is very expensive, but this is in line with everybody else at £159. It's the best picture quality I've seen on one of these. And it's a new wide angle one, which is late 2024. So yeah, cutting edge stuff. One for the dog. Now we use this on for our dogs when we come back from shooting. Brilliant. The dogs are wet, a little bit cold, put this on them. It really sucks out the wetness, and time we get back home, the dogs are all lovely and dry and warm. £26, different sizes for different dogs. Here we are, Beretta earmuffs. This is a colour that you won't lose. How many people come into us and I've lost my earmuffs, I've dropped them somewhere. So we got there's other colours, but this is certainly the brightest colour. So if you did drop it, you ought to be able to find it again. It's a practical thing of actually finding it. It's like having an orange penknife. Ooh, no. This is sounding good. Here we go. This is real popular. From Browning, ammunition boxes. They're plastic. There's two. You've got the big one and a little bit smaller one internally. Great value, waterproof, looks after your ammo, keeps it obviously dry, clean, and keeps it tidy. It's not rolling about in the car. £24.95 for 2 boxes, and it is well-made, rugged stuff. We've got now certificate wallets. We've got 2 there in the tartan and the nice, real traditional leather ones. Lovely, lovely quality, and the number of licenses we get come in that are screwed up, folded up, page missing, ripped, covered in blood, or well, everything you just won't believe. And then they hand it to the girls and they're like this. So buy one of these, keep it nice and tidy. For the last 2 years we haven't sold many of these, but it has picked up quite a bit recently. I've got to say, Devon and Cornwall have improved. Cleaning kits. I knew they were down there. So I got 2 here, to one end of the scale to the other. We're looking at the Jack Pike shotgun cleaning kit, 12 bore there, £13.95. It's a basic kit, but it's got everything you need, and for £13.95, you know, it's you're not spending big money, but you're doing the job, looking after your gun. And then we've got the Bisley one here, which, yes, it's quite a bit more money, but when you look at what you've got in there, you've got quality wood rod there, cloths, brushes, bronze, mops and so on, at £61.95. Nice carry case, so you won't lose it and it'll all stay together. Yeah, this is the red stag cord. Charlie said I must try it to make sure it works. So I'll give it a go, but look out behind me, because the stags could be coming out of the woodwork. That's an absolute bargain, £45. It's either a red stag coming or you had a bad Chinese last night. But so that rounds off our Christmas again this year. All right.
Thanks, Ian. And that's it for this week. If you haven't done so already, please visit our website, FieldsportsChannel.tv, where you can click to like us on Facebook and Instagram. You can follow us on X and TikTok. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, or pop your email address into our weekly newsletter box and we'll contact you about this show. Fieldsports Britain, it's at 7 p.m. UK time every Wednesday. And this has been Fieldsports Britain. Good hunting, good shooting, good fishing, and goodbye.